There is a pattern that quietly destroys some of the most decent people alive. It doesn't announce itself as danger. It doesn't show up as violence. It doesn't even show up as obvious cruelty. It shows up as connection. It shows up as a person who seems to need you. A person who is magnetic, wounded, intense. A person who makes you feel unusually significant. And if you are kind, if you are empathic, if you are someone who has learned to listen deeply, you may have lived the same story more than once. At first, they praise your depth. They admire your calm. They say you are different. They make you feel chosen. Then something shifts. Your words stop landing. Your boundaries start looking like betrayal. Your emotions become too much. Your memory gets questioned. Your sincerity becomes a weakness they can push on. And one day you find yourself asking, with a strange emptiness behind your eyes, why do I always attract people like this? Why is my kindness always misunderstood, exploited, or punished? Why do I keep becoming the one who gives until there is nothing left? This video is not a moral speech. It's not a learn to hate narcissist lecture. It is an explanation, psychological, precise, and painfully liberating of the hidden structure beneath this cycle. Because once you see the structure, you stop blaming yourself. And more importantly, you stop repeating it. Let's say the truth slowly. Your kindness did not attract narcissists. Your kindness is not a scent. It is not a signal that says, use me. Kindness by itself does not invite exploitation. What attracted them was something else. Kindness without protection. Kindness without boundaries. Kindness without the willingness to withdraw. Because a narcissistic personality is not looking for love. Not really. It's looking for regulation. Someone to hold their instability. Someone to absorb their shame. Someone to carry what they cannot face inside themselves. And in many kind people, there is an unconscious training. If I can just stay calm enough, loving enough, patient enough, then everything will be okay. That belief is not innocence. It is a survival strategy that once helped you. But in adult relationships, the survival strategy becomes a trap. The narcissist doesn't see your patience as strength. They see it as an open gate that never closes. Most people imagine kindness is a personality trait. But for many deep empaths, kindness was not chosen. It was built. It was built in environments where emotions were unpredictable, where love came with conditions, where conflict was dangerous, where your safety depended on reading someone else's mood. So you became gifted at scanning faces, hearing the unsaid, noticing tension before it becomes chaos, keeping the peace before anyone asks. You learned that being easy to deal with earned you survival points. And slowly, you may have turned into the emotional caretaker of your world. That becomes your identity. Not just, I am kind, but I am the one who understands. I am the one who holds it together. I am the one who forgives. I am the one who stays. This identity is admired by society, but psychologically it has a cost. Because to become the one who stays, you had to sacrifice something. You had to sacrifice the part of you that says, this is not okay. You had to bury anger. You had to bury refusal. You had to bury the instinct that protects you. And Jung would call that buried instinct part of the shadow, not because it's evil, but because it was rejected. Jung warned that the psyche seeks wholeness. If you repress an energy, it does not disappear. It becomes unconscious. And the unconscious does not negotiate politely. It returns, but it returns in disguise. It returns through attraction, through obsession, through repeated patterns. If you rejected your own assertiveness, selfishness, power, emotional sovereignty, you will often meet someone who expresses these things in exaggerated, distorted form. And narcissists are precisely that distortion. They embody a hyperdeveloped self with an underdeveloped conscience. They speak the language of self-importance. They act as if the world revolves around them. They do not naturally feel the weight of reciprocity. To someone who is denied their own right to be important, this looks like strength, and it can feel hypnotic, because unconsciously your psyche is trying to learn something through them, how to reclaim what you abandoned. But the lesson is not become like them. The lesson is stop being afraid of your own power. Narcissistic dynamics begin with something that looks like love. The narcissist often mirrors you, especially in the beginning. They study what you value: authenticity, loyalty, depth, spirituality, growth, healing, and then they reflect those values back at you, not because they are grounded in them, but because reflection is how they create attachment. So you experience, "I've never felt seen like this." But be careful. Being seen and being mirrored are not the same. Being seen is when someone perceives you and respects your reality. Being mirrored is when someone reflects you in order to bind you. It feels intense because it is fast. It feels special because it is selective. It feels powerful because it bypasses time. And if you have a history of emotional scarcity, intensity feels like love. You don't realize you are being pulled into a system where your empathy becomes currency. Control doesn't begin with aggression. It begins with micro-invalidation. Small distortions that seem harmless at first. You're reading too much into it. You're too sensitive. That's not what happened. Why are you making a big deal out of nothing? And because you are kind, you do what kind people do. You check yourself before you check them. You wonder, maybe I am overthinking. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I'm being unfair. Maybe my standards are too high. But this is where the trap forms. Healthy relationships allow repair through truth. Narcissistic relationships demand peace through self-erasure. You can have harmony, but only if you shrink. You can have connection, but only if you surrender your perception. And this is how your kindness becomes a weapon used against you. They use your self-doubt. They use your empathy. They use your desire to be fair. Because fairness, in the wrong hands, becomes a leash. Many kind people believe in the power of explanation. They believe if they communicate clearly enough, gently enough, logically enough, the other person will finally understand. But narcissistic dynamics do not operate on misunderstanding. They operate on advantage. A narcissist may understand you perfectly. They simply do not feel obligated to honor it if honoring it costs them control. So what happens when you explain? You reveal your inner system. You give them your map. You show them what scares you, what triggers your guilt, what makes you stay what you long for. And then they adjust. Not to love you better, but to manage you more efficiently. That is why you leave these relationships feeling like you are going crazy. Not because you are unstable, because you were interacting with someone whose reality changes based on what serves them. This is the part people rarely talk about honestly. You don't just get hurt in a narcissistic cycle. You get bonded. The bonding happens through inconsistency, warmth, then coldness, praise, then contempt, closeness, then distance, promise, then withdrawal. Your nervous system becomes addicted to the relief. You start chasing moments of the person you met in the beginning. And because you are deep, you interpret this chase as loyalty. You interpret it as love. You interpret it as patience. But psychologically, it's a trauma response. Your system is trying to restore the original high. And here is the hidden horror. The more you chase, the more they feel powerful. The more they feel powerful, the less they respect you. The less they respect you, the more pain you absorb. Until your identity becomes, "I will prove I am worthy," and that is the oldest wound repeating itself. So what is the real reason? It's not that you are kind. It's not even that you are empathic. It's that you may have a subconscious belief that love requires sacrifice. That if you give enough, endure enough, understand enough, someone will finally become safe. This belief keeps the cycle alive because it creates a blind spot. You confuse potential with reality. You keep investing in what someone could be instead of responding to what they consistently are. And that blind spot is where narcissists build a home. Most people end this cycle the wrong way. They become cynical. They become cold. They become suspicious of everyone. But that is not healing. That is just a different kind of wound. The cycle ends through integration. Integration means you reclaim your shadow in a clean form. Anger becomes clarity. Boundaries become honesty. Selfishness becomes self-respect. Detachment becomes freedom. You don't become cruel. You become impossible to use. Because your kindness no longer comes from fear. It comes from choice. And choice is everything. Let's turn this into concrete psychological actions. Stop explaining your boundaries. A boundary explained is often a boundary negotiated. Instead of long speeches, practice short truths. No, that doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that. I'm leaving this conversation. If your nervous system screams guilt, that's normal. Guilt is the withdrawal symptom of self-abandonment. Watch what happens when you stop giving free access. Narcissistic dynamics survive on access. Access to your time, access to your attention, access to your emotional labor. Remove access, and you remove the reward. Judge reality by patterns, not promises. A narcissist can promise a universe. But patterns are what your psyche lives in. Ask, what happens repeatedly? What is consistent? Who am I becoming around this person? Learn to disappoint without collapsing. This is the mature skill that ends everything. A healed person can disappoint someone without turning it into a moral crisis. There is a moment narcissists fear. It's not your anger. They can use your anger. It's not your tears. They can use your tears. It's your calm certainty. When you become internally anchored, their manipulations stop working because they need reaction to feel real. They provoke you to create movement. You stay still. They twist words to create confusion. You stay clear. They offer crumbs to pull you back. You don't reach. And then they feel something unfamiliar. They can't reach you anymore. Not because you built walls, because you finally stopped leaving yourself. Your kindness is rare. But kindness without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. And self-betrayal always ends in resentment, exhaustion, and numbness. The goal is not to kill your empathy. The goal is to make your empathy sacred, protected, disciplined, directed. So it is given to those who can hold it. When you integrate your shadow, you stop attracting the distorted version of power in others because you have reclaimed your own. And then kindness stops being something you lose. It becomes something you wield. Quietly, firmly, without apology.